We'll call to order the Monday, March 17th meeting of the Conestoga Valley Board of School Directors. I want to welcome those of you that are here in the room as well as those that join us online. This is our second meeting of the month where most official votes are taken, many of which are listed on the consent agenda, which includes those items which are routine or have been discussed at our work session last week. All agendas and related public documents are posted on the district website. Will you please begin by joining me to the pledge of the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Martin, may we have attendance, please?
There are 8 directors present tonight. Mr. Talley is absent. We have a quorum in place.
And I would note that the superintendent and most of the administrative cabinet are also here. Are there any changes, deletions, additions, or corrections to the agenda? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? If not, the agenda is approved. We will go on with board commendations. Congratulations to Conestoga Valley High School boys basketball player Demir Salisbury, who was named a Lancaster Lebanon All-Star. The freshman was named to the Section 2 first team, the lone Buckskin to earn All-Star recognition. Congratulations to Conestoga Valley High School Buckskins of the month for January. Individuals who recognized for displaying strong character trait of the month, perseverance, and were voted on by their peers and teachers. The individuals were Abdul Akala Sr., Gibby Gibriwahi Jr., Mitchell Espenshade Sophomore, Noah Fosnot Freshman, and Amy Reen was chosen Teacher of the Month. Congratulations to Conestoga Valley High School girls basketball players who received Lancaster Lebanon League honors, and head coach Bill Moore, who was named the Section 2 Coach of the Year as voted upon by his fellow coaches. Winners were Azalea Washington and Tia Logan, who were named to first team All-Stars. Gabrielle Moore was a second team selection, and Bianca Henry was named as a defensive All-Star and was also the team's academic star. Congratulations to Conestoga Valley High School students Carson Miller and Sawyer Sensnick, who were inducted into the National Technical Honor Society. Both students attend the Mount Joy CTC campus in the Carpentry Tech Program and Culinary Arts, respectively. We are excited to welcome 158 incoming CV kindergarten families who signed up to attend last month's Stop One event, Kickoff to Kindergarten. A huge thank you to the elementary staff for their work welcoming future Buckskins and their families. Incoming students participated in literacy, math, and social-emotional stations, received train books, toured kindergarten classrooms, and signed up for kindergarten registration appointments. We offer a CV welcome to the class of 2038. I know. I know. Superintendent's comments. Dr. Hartman.
Good evening. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody, if you celebrate, or if you're like me and a huge college basketball fan, more importantly, happy kickoff to March Madness. So just one important announcement this evening. We'd like to introduce a new hire. We have Alexis Musso with us this evening. Welcome, Alexis. Alexis is going to be our new autistic support teacher at Brownstown Elementary School. So she's a 2023 graduate of Shippensburg University with a dual major in elementary education and special education. She's done a few long-term sub and short-term sub assignments in different school districts in the area, but now we're welcoming on her, and most importantly, she's also a CV alumni. So welcome home.
Yeah, is she our only new hire?
She is our only new hire this
Welcome
evening for teaching. That concludes my report.
Are there any board comments on recent activities? Is there any correspondence, Mrs. Martin?
There is not.
Then we'll move on to our presentation from, I think, Mrs. Schaefer. No, I couldn't see you hiding back there. I thought you weren't here.
Good evening, everyone. I have the pleasure to present to you the K-12 guidance plan. It is also known by a term called a 339 plan, too. And that is the state's term, the 339, and it's related to career and work studies. So that's how that came to be. Within the typical group, we call it a K-12 guidance plan, and so that's what I'll refer to it for you guys. It is a 5-year plan. It goes alongside the comprehensive plan, but it is not on the same schedule. It's on a different schedule, but it's meant to align with the comprehensive plan. It has to be approved by the local school board, and it's meant to show how we've developed and how we implement our comprehensive guidance services across the district, K-12. It is meant to include some procedures. It's meant to, like I said, pull that 339 guidance in for procedures, how to get students interested in the local CTCs and work programs such as those types of things. The plan is a living document. It's meant to grow with our curriculum. It's meant to grow with what our programs and support services look like. It's to reflect our programming, our curriculum, and our support services. Career and work, and also all of these areas right here. The plan is meant to model off of ASCA, which is American School Counselor Association guidelines of what school counseling should look like. You may, remember what your school counselor did. In a lot of ways, maybe it looked a certain way in years past. I can remember my school counselor was very driven on college. It looks a whole lot different. And so when we talk about what a school counselor does, it's not just related to college planning. It's not just related to academic planning, like how to schedule your courses for the following year. It also has a lot of mental health components, prevention components, counseling components, individual student planning. And so that is why we use the ASCA model. And so Pennsylvania Department of Education uses this model to say that we should use the K-12 plan to model what ASCA recommends for school counselors. So you see the first one's called a guidance curriculum. The next one's prevention, intervention, and responsive services. The next one, individual student planning and system support. And I wanted to draw your attention to, I color-coded those because when you actually get into the plan, it looks like a rainbow a little bit. So when you got into that plan, you're going to see a lot of topics that have colors. And the reason why we put those colors is because that's how we link it back to what ASCA is saying we need to have those links to. So if you see something in the plan that's blue, it's related to individual student planning, like individual student academic and occupational planning, decision-making, goal setting, preparing for academic transitions. If you saw something that was purple, it has to do with the prevention and intervention and response supports that we give to our students. So you have a guidance curriculum that is a K-12, and that's going to be in green, and that's our student awareness skills, our skill development, application of skills. We're looking at academic work and also the career and college ready skills for students to be ready to go right after graduation. And then lastly is system supports, and those are in red. So we talk about what the guidance counselor is also, the school counselor is also doing across the school. So they may be working with some PBIS groups. They may be working with some MTSS groups, and that's a system support. It's not necessarily just related to the counseling, but they are supporting the overall academic and mental health and social emotional system of the district. Does that make sense to everyone, the way I explained that? Okay. And ultimately, what we did was we had a 5-month meeting where all of our counselors got together, and this is the first time that this group of counselors put together a guidance plan. And so it was a really good exercise for all of them because they really understood what was happening from an elementary perspective all the way to the high school perspective. So the high school counselors understood what the elementary counselors were doing. Middle school knows what everyone's doing. So it was a really good exercise for everyone to learn about what's happening at all the levels, and also understand how that ASCA model may look a little different from one group to the next. Because what we ultimately want to do is we want to build more consistency across all of our counseling areas in the district. So that's one of the main highlights that we are taking away from the work that the counselors did over the last 5 months. These are all the areas, there's 12 areas in the guidance plan that our counselors worked on and developed. So you have the school counselors and assignment section, a mission statement, what the goals are, stakeholder targets, who the stakeholders are in our community, our teachers, our staff, our students, our parents, our advisory council members, what the program calendar looks like, our ongoing monthly counseling activities, how we deliver the program, how much time we spend in each of those areas. It's a time on task. And if you look through the plan, you'll see that there are percentages of time that they may have spent in prevention, that they may have spent in system support. And ASCA gives a recommended time for our counselors to spend in each of the areas. So we just took a moment in time and did ultimately like a Google document to be able to say, okay, so how much time are we spending in these areas? What we plan on doing in the future is you have graciously accepted a proposal from us, and we're moving forward with it, to buy a program called SCUDA, and it is a time on task tool for our counselors to be able to use in the future. So it's not a Google Doc, it's not going to take time. So what it's meant to do is everything that they put into their Outlook calendar is going to be automatically pushed into the ASCA model, so we're able to track and really work through how we're providing our services and ultimately become more efficient, more consistent too. We also have a curriculum action plan, which is specifically related to 339 activities, so the career and work areas. We have an area called ongoing career and post-secondary resources. We have individual action plans by grades. And lastly is a grade-by-grade CTC strategy. So we have to pull out certain areas for the CTC strategy that happen in each of the grade levels. Do they do visitations? How do they talk about the CTC? When does it become part of the understanding across the district that the CTC exists? What is it? So I'd be glad to open up the K-12 document if you wanted to ask any questions about it, but that's the main topics, how we work through that. It's done by elementary, middle school, and high school. And so you'll see the monthly activities done in career, social, and career awareness. And they're color-coded, related to the ASCA model. And you're also going to see, so you'll see that for elementary, middle school, and high school. And then you'll also see the curriculum action plan that was done for elementary, middle, and high school. Do you have any questions at this time? It's a lot. It's like I said, it's a good exercise for all of our staff, all of our counseling staff to really work through this. We sat here in this room multiple times and went through that and really got to know what was happening. And when they started going through the monthly activities, it's like I said, it's a great exercise. It's something that we're not going to, now that they know how to do it, it's something that we're going to keep at the forefront, along with the SCUDA system that I was talking about. We're really going to delve into the ASCA pieces and look at that consistency across the district.
So this is the first year this is being
This specific one is the first year. The last 5 years sequence looked a whole lot different than this one. I guess what I would like to point out in this one is that in the goals section, we chose 3 goals. They're very measurable, and they're very clear about what we want to do. So I think one of them, if I can think right off the top of my head, was 11th grade. By 11th grade, going into 12th grade, we want to have 90% of our students participate in some sort of work piece, that either they're doing a job shadow or there's like 10 different things that they could do. So we want to have 90% of our students by that time have that already done. I think in 8th grade, it was an interest survey. And I can't remember what 3rd grade was. But if you would look at the last year's, the previous guidance plan that was from 10 years ago, there were over 20 goals. And they were very broad in general, and they didn't have any measurement criteria. And so when we talked through that as a group, we wanted to make sure that we were very clear in aligning what was happening in all the work that Mel Upton is doing in the non-traditional learning area and all the goals that she has, and make sure that we are side by side with her and supporting all the non-traditional areas that she's working with, and making sure that that's happening in our guidance department too. So that's where we pulled those goals from, to be able to align both of those areas.
Going forward, the time on task, would that be reviewed? Would the goals be measured and reviewed regularly, and who will do that?
Yes, so the goals are going to be regularly measured. We'll be doing that every year. And in terms of the SCUDA, the time on task, we plan on working with our principals and talking about what ASCA activities are happening in each of the buildings. And, so the principals, most of our I don't think our principals, any of them are school counselors. So it's a new kind of understanding about what a school counselor, what ASCA is recommending. So by knowing a little bit more about what ASCA has and what our monthly counseling activities are expected, and understanding what our curriculum looks like, we'll be able to have a lot more robust conversation between what's happening in the building and what's happening in the counseling office. So it's not meant to be a checkup, it's not meant to be anything like that, it's just to give us guidance on,
It's not
maybe.
an evaluation.
No, not at all. So it may say for a portion of the year, one counselor may be doing a heck of a lot of time on responsive and prevention services, and not so much time on supportive services. And that's just a good conversation, like what's going on right now. How does that reflect on what's happening in the building or a certain situation? And so it's good conversation. It leads to, it just leads to more knowledge and more improvement of what we're doing across our district here.
Any other comments or questions? Since we have a mixed approval agenda, we're going to vote on this now.
Okay.
So I will take
What
a
is the
motion
Zello
to approve
program
the
again?
District 339 plan.
The Zello program is what we use to house our career and work artifacts, which is required under the 339 plan. So there's certain periods in time that we need to make sure that by this grade level, a student has completed so many work and career artifacts. And Zello helps us do that, and also to collect those artifacts and then maintain them. So we're not putting things into like a little paper file somewhere.
It's one of the many programs we see.
Yes.
Just need that refreshment course. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Zello also has a lot of the career lessons that we do. There's like lessons that are based by grade level that they can do in there, and then it tracks it as their evidence that we have to collect that they're meeting their career to work goals. So it's a pretty robust program.
Still waiting for a motion. Oh, please, someone give me a motion to approve the 339 plan.
District 339 plan.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any nays or abstentions? If not, you are approved. Thank you. This is a point where if anyone in the public would like to make a comment about an agenda item. Any comments from CVEA? Any other employee groups? If not, we will look at the consent agenda. Are there any concerns or comments in advance? Mrs. Trowbridge.
Excuse me, sorry. I got lost in my.
That's okay, that's okay.
So what am I doing?
Any questions or comments about anything on the consent agenda?
Yes. Just a comment on K. on the Market Street, I did not remember seeing anything about UPMC before. I had seen the Toyota, and this was just the first time I saw that. On M, K and W with Fritz, I did not realize there was more to the first 2 pages last week, my error. So this is, what are they doing? It has to do with the parking lots and an additional building. And what are we doing to the parking lots and what's the additional building, please?
I can help you out with that. So the parking lots, and this is over at Fritz Elementary, we need to expand and provide some more parking space. So we're looking at taking that island that's in the center of the drop-off at front of Fritz. And we're going to be removing the flagpole, placing it over closer to the building, and then opening up that little grassy island for parking spaces. And then also where one of the current playground areas are, we're going to move that playground back behind the building, in essence, between 2 of the wings, and then take that former playground area and turn it into some parking spaces. And then also on the area where the parents will go in and sort of drive through the side of Fritz, we're going to look at expanding some of that to provide some more parking.
Okay. And the building?
We're going through renovations with that building. We're still in the design development phase. We're not going to start any renovations until 2026, summer 2026 at the earliest.
But there's an additional build-on.
Oh, yeah, there's
additional.
going to be an expansion of basically about 1 or 2 classrooms towards the end of some of the wings there at Fritz. It's not significant.
Right.
What
I just
grade would
wanted
those
to know what it was
classrooms be?
for. Yep.
What grade would those classrooms be for? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I think where the expansion is kindergarten, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's
Sorry,
right,
what?
kindergarten, because it's going to be, that's why we're moving to kindergarten playground back to that area.
That makes sense. I saw those 2 rooms. I didn't know what they were for.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other I have one that I'd like to bring up. I'm not quite sure if this is for, number D, if this is for, no, I'm sorry, it's not D. I've lost my place. Where are the 100 series?
E.
I've lost them on my agenda. Could somebody lead me to the 100?
There,
Item E are the policies.
Ah, there we go. Yes, thank you, right in front of my nose. One of our policies, and I'm not sure if this belongs in the 100s or the 200s, because I wasn't aware of it, so I was going over the 200s and saw another graduation policy. Here is my issue. Some years ago, the legislature removed from our local LEAs with encouragement from the military, and they no longer were able to provide diplomas from the Lancaster Academy. So now our students get a CV diploma. At the same time that was done, and we agreed, I assumed it went somewhere in policies, evidently it didn't, they were to be given, it was to mention that they would get our diplomas and that they are allowed to participate in graduation. I can't find that anywhere. I'm not sure where it belongs, but I do know from commencements I've been at, the CTC students are recognized specifically. The IU students and the Lancaster Academy students are not. I don't know if their names are even included on the graduation roster, and they should be. Anyone have any questions about my concerns here? And I don't know if that belongs in this set of policies or if it belongs in the 200s.
My guess would be that's probably a 200 because it's pupils, yeah,
Okay,
students.
then I'll wait till we get there. And I won't repeat all of this then, I promise you. Okay. Any other concerns on the consent agenda? If not, I will take a motion to approve items 5A through N.
Motion to approve items A through N on the consent agenda.
Roll call vote, please.
Dr. Martin? Aye. Mrs. Fisher? Aye. Mr. Hurst? Aye. Mrs. Kapka? Aye. Mr. Gensel?
Aye.
Mr. Eby?
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge?
Aye.
Mrs. Groff?
Aye. And it passes unanimously. Then we're going to move on to action discussion. Mrs. Hunsinger again with a budget review that she told me might take 30 or 40 minutes.
Maybe I can knock that down to maybe 4 to 5 minutes with
Thank
this.
you, appreciate that.
For this month only. The fun really starts next month. So I was at a PASBO conference last week, Pennsylvania Association of School Business Officials, and it was very, very interesting, a lot of good information. You imagine you got 500 school districts in the state, and you've got at least 2 representatives from each school, so you've got 1,000 accountants in one conference. It was pretty dynamic. But in all seriousness, it was some very, very good information, and to be able to talk with the colleagues and get their perspectives on things. So just a little bit of a preview for the next month's rollout of the budget information. What we're looking at is that we have had and continue to have some growth of real estate tax assessed values here in the district. Unfortunately, some of that has been offset by some assessment appeals, but we're still continuing the growth. If you've seen some of the distribution centers that are going up over in the Ben Franklin Boulevard area of East Lampeter Township, as well as the apartment complexes there at the corner of Willow Road and Greenfield Road too. So we're watching that and monitoring that for when it comes onto our tax rolls. But the assessment appeals, I think, more than anything, are just a reflection of the economy that some businesses have struggled with. So we're watching that. Obviously, we don't have a real estate tax rate to talk about yet, but we'll be talking about that in the next 2 months. Interest income, good news there is that the rates have not really decreased very much. So that's been helping our revenue. We're looking probably at a budget amount of around $1.5 million, and it wasn't too long ago when the rates were so low that we were barely getting $150,000 in revenue for interest income. So the good news is that keeps our income up. The bad news is we are looking to float another bond issue in the near future. If you recall, when Scott Kramer was out in January from Raymond James talking about another bond issue that we need to continue with some of these renovation projects. And also our earned income tax revenue appears to be holding pretty steady, no decreases, slight increases though. So the big question last week was regarding the state funding. What do all the speculation, and I attended every single course that I could on what was going to be happening with the state budget. And the consensus for the most part was that districts are going to get from the basic education, special education subsidy, and the Ready to Learn adequacy supplement. Consensus is that districts will probably get what we are getting currently for the 24-25 year. That's great. For CV, though, the additional amount that was originally proposed in February by the governor was an additional $1.4 million. Probably right now we're going to budget part of that, but not all of it. And they might be taking some of that additional adequacy money and filling in some of the buckets for the basic education, special education subsidy, because that's been the lowest amount that they've funded those two revenues for quite some time. And then obviously what has gotten a lot of momentum lately too is the cyber tuition reform. So that seems to be getting a lot of attention. This year we received over $100,000 in subsidy to help offset the cyber tuition costs that we incur. They've removed that from the budget, and so there's a lot of discussions on both sides of the table about reform. So we'll see what happens over there in the next couple months. And then our federal funding, the allocations for the Title I revenues and the other title programs typically don't get issued to us until late spring, usually around mid to late May. So we're going to flat fund that for right now, but for budget purposes, and then we'll see what happens with that. As far as expenditures go, salaries and staffing, that's continuing, obviously. Benefits, PSER's rate hasn't really changed. It went from 33.9% of total salaries, total wages, up to 34%, so that was just a minor increase. In healthcare, we're also watching some of the trends. We'll have some better data over the next couple weeks. Special education costs continue to increase, so does transportation. And obviously, when you look at some of the budget numbers, you'll see some fluctuations with the revenues and expenditures because we had ESSER monies for the last several years. Now those have gone away, so you'll be seeing some variances there. And then we, of course, have our ongoing construction projects and renovations, which is adding some of that additional debt service for us. But regarding the renovation projects and the additional debt service, we met with Scott Kramer last month and discussed with him some grant opportunities that are out there and a company that could conceivably assist us in getting some grant monies. One is called the RCAP program. It's the Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program. The other is the Public School Facility Improvement Grants, and then the PCCD, PA Commission on Crime and Delivery. So we're going to be looking into those. We already apply for and receive PCCD funding, but the other two grants we're going to look at and see what we can do to capture as much subsidy that we can. That grant revenue would go into the construction fund. It would not go into our general fund, though. But yes, I did.
These grants, are they from that organization we talked about after he?
Yeah, yes.
Do you know what their cut is for those grants?
I just received last week their agreement, and I glanced at it, but I did not read through it. So I'll be bringing that back to you very soon.
Thank you.
Because we want to get moving on this.
That was what, like OC, I forget the name of the company.
GSL? Don't ask me what it stands for off the top of my head. So that's just a brief update on the budget. More fun coming up next month, so.
Questions, comments, donations to the budget? Okay, well, we'll wait till we have things more specific. Thank you.
Yes. And I have the next item, too. I have the next item as well.
Yes, I know, I'm
Yeah,
waiting.
okay.
Go ahead, just keep moving.
Okay, keep moving.
What document would you like?
The one on the bottom left, the one on the right, bottom right.
Bottom right.
Yep, that one. So last week we, as you recall, discussed changing of some of the categories, classifications for our facility usage of our fields and facilities. So taking that plus that nice big Excel spreadsheet of all the proposed revised rates, took that and incorporated it into the existing application document that we had, updated some of the verbiage that was in that document as well, nothing significant. With that Excel spreadsheet that I showed you last week, listing all the facilities, we did have, if you're trying to follow this schedule here to that, there were some changes to some field names that are reflected on this document, as well as there are about 3 new fields that we needed to incorporate into this document. So that is updated, as well as the rules for use of our facilities. And again, there were very few changes to that document, and we can always certainly tweak things as we go. I do want to mention that even though we have this document here in paper, Anthony Spatero has done a very nice job of moving to an online electronic application process, which they rolled out on March 3rd. It seems to be going pretty well so far. So we will maintain this document, although everything is going to be mirroring it online.
Where do we find the rules?
The rules are also...
I mean, most of the people, I think, on this board have probably never read the full set of rules before.
Yeah, the rules are also attached here, and they'll be
Are
attached.
they?
Yes,
Okay.
they are.
Okay. I had just a couple things on that.
Okay.
Under Class 1, I would have liked to see you include approved clubs. If a club wants to have use of rooms, I'd like them to be included in Class 1.
I'm sorry, I didn't...
Clubs?
Yes.
Okay.
Clubs.
approved clubs.
Okay, okay.
And with the feeder programs, I think you should specify contingent on having an approved or recognized CV sport,
Okay.
to specify that. I had one issue that I remembered when I was reading over this, and I know it says we will not rent where it interferes with our program.
Right.
However, I was made aware recently, and I think you were there at that meeting, when they talked about the basketball program, the intramural basketball program. It's, for several weeks. But our phys ed teachers sometimes have equipment that they put out in the gym. And because basketball is coming, they have to schlep all that equipment back in and then back out again. I think we need to coordinate a little better with staff, specifically for gymnasium use. I don't know if that applies to any of the other facilities as much as it does to gyms, but they shouldn't have to be dragging all that equipment back and forth every week.
Okay. Yeah, I can speak with, that was probably an elementary building that was being used.
Probably.
So I can talk to the principals further about that too.
And the teachers, maybe they can adjust, when they do what programs, but by the
Yeah.
same token, our
Yeah.
programs come first.
Right, yes.
Question, what is the Uyeda gym?
Oh, that's, over in the high school, we have the real gym, and then there's another gym, it's slightly smaller. It used to be referred to as the main gym, but there was a former CV graduate that, an outstanding wrestler, and the gym was named after him as part of the capital campaign back in, over 10 years ago.
Thank you.
I'm okay with giving you approval with the understanding that there will be fixes to it.
Yes.
And this is also a voice vote, since we're not approving contracts or money. So I will take a motion to approve the facility usage fee structure. Because it's the structure that we're approving, not the
Yes.
details.
Yeah.
You-
Motion to approve the facility usage fee structure.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? If not, that is approved.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're back with the Buckskin Alliance.
I'm here this time.
Mrs. Myers, it's good to see you back.
Sorry, I was at work last week, so I apologize.
Well, we'll forgive you, but don't let it happen again.
I know, the lady that I work for is really mean. Self-employed. She's really mean. We have only 3 this time on this round, so it wasn't as big. The first one was, can you click on that, Dr. Hartman? That's from band. Should be for their drum major stand. Apparently the other one is on its last leg, is the way they presented it, so you can go down a little bit there. They chose quote 1, which was the lesser of the 3, but that was their preferred one, and that's the one that we had approved at our March meeting. We're in March meeting. So we're looking for approval on that one. And then would be, yep, Coach Bond and them. This is their first application that they put in. They're looking to get a more uniform look on, with the track. It is one of the, I guess maybe it's second largest or the largest program we have.
It is
Sport?
by far the largest.
Yes, we were
We
at
have
our
100
first meet
kids on
today.
the
We had a
team.
scrimmage today, and it's pretty large. And they just had asked about, we would like to look uniform when we're out there. Right now, it kind of just looks hodgepodge with sweatshirts and things like that. And it is cold. It was terrible today. So it is cold. So it was to keep the kids warm and help with that and keep that uniform look. Mrs. Martin did send me some of the questions. The laundered question, Mrs. Travers, I believe you asked that. It would be the same as any other sports. The families would launder them, turn them into the athletic office, and then Janet does it again and then hangs them up for storage. So it would be the same way.
Thank you.
The difference in cost, when they originally quoted Coach Bond, it was for only 120 jackets, but with a different type of logo than what he had requested. So then it changed and it made it cheaper, and he was able to get more jackets. So that was the difference in cost. So he did resubmit that. So it was a benefit to us.
So the 8320 is the correct
Is the
amount?
correct amount. That is the correct amount. And then the other one,
I have a question there. The application wasn't signed.
it is on this one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Signed here.
yeah, he did turn around and sign that one.
Okay, thank you.
And then Mrs. Henry submitted one, and I'll let her speak on that one.
Yep. Okay. This is a speaker, her name is Carly Musser. She came highly recommended to me by some colleagues that I have at Millersville University. I spoke with her numerous times, and she does mental performance, not just for athletes, but for performers. It could even be for academics. And she would come and speak in a group setting. We would invite everybody that is under the BAA umbrella, so that would include the student athletes, the drama participants, and the band participants. And we would pick a night, she would come, she would give her training that evening to everybody that's present. It's a similar training that she gives to individual teams, which could then, if their booster clubs wanted to go on and hire her to do additional training, they can. But for this training, I wanted to include everybody.
That one was for 600.
Yeah, and there was a correction on the agenda. That's a BAA, not a BBA grants.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay. Should be the worst we have. Any questions? Gonna hold that vote for the next one too, that's also. But we will vote
I'm
on
sorry,
it.
I didn't hear you.
I'm gonna hold the vote for our next item, but we will vote on them together.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you're holding it for,
The next item, but we
oh,
will
the
vote
next
on
item.
them
The
together.
next item, got it. Thank you, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Hartman, on communication essentials, is that your issue?
So this is from Mrs. Trasborg, who could not be here this evening, but essentially we just have a need to expand our translation services. This is for in-person translation, and the one organization we use did not have availability for some dates that we needed them, and this company did. So
I know at the IU, every month we're approving more translators. Any questions? If not, I will take a motion to approve.
Yes. On this, communication essentials, is it per usage
yes,
that will be billed?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, I will take a motion to approve items 6C and D.
Make a motion to approve items C and D under the action discussion.
I'll have a roll call vote.
Second it?
Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Fisher? Aye. Mr. Hurst?
Aye.
Mrs. Kapka? Aye. Mr. Gensel?
Aye.
Mr. Eby?
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge?
Aye.
Mrs. Groff?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
They are approved unanimously, and we will move on to district policies in the 200 series. Folks, this is getting near the end of the big ones. To go over these, I'm just going to go down the list. If you have a question or a concern, speak up. Starting with 201, 202, 203, 203.
Question.
Yep.
203. immunizations, it looks like they're required of everybody, or they're to be having a schedule of them to be done, except for homeless students.
So that's based on the McKinney-Vento law. We can't require them, those students. So we can't, that can't be a prohibitor of them enrolling or us taking them if they qualify for homeless status.
But even to get them pre-scheduled for, I mean, if we accept them and they're in our school district, there wouldn't even be that they should be getting them.
Ideally, they would, but if their status prevents them from, we can't hold that against
Okay,
a student and their family.
Thank you.
Okay. 203.1.
Yeah,
204.
On 203.1, it's the HIV
Yes.
one. Under the education, it says that the HIV prevention education is taught at every grade level. Is that something new? And I guess, is that a state guideline?
If there's a footnote, you can count on it's a law. If you
It's
find that
there at the
line,
very end.
is
the
there a
very end.
footnote?
It's typically, this is in reference to appropriate staff being trained, is my understanding. It does reference students there.
Right.
Are you suggesting it be worded differently?
Well, I was just curious if that's like a state regulation.
I think it's in PA code, but there's a couple things in school code with regards to like this type of thing, where if it's in a grade level where you teach health, it would be taught. But so we might need to look at the wording of that prior to our next. Yeah, because it's like, for example, I know there's one of the ones we passed recently with opioid addiction. There was a state law that if you happen to teach health education in that grade, then yes, that should be included. But if you don't, the state doesn't get to mandate where you teach that. So we can look at the language of that prior to final reading.
And then the other one is, my other question is on the opt-out. It doesn't seem like there's like across the district opt-out like procedure for things. And I know like I get a lot of emails and so sometimes things fall through the cracks based on just who it's from. If I didn't have the person, as a VIP on my iPad, I might not actually see that email. So is there another policy somewhere that talks about opting out?
That was one of the 100s we just adopted. Yeah, there's a specific policy on parent that talks about the process for parents opting out of any instruction.
What I think would be
I think it's
helpful.
105, but don't quote me on that.
I think it would be helpful in a lot of these if this policy referenced that policy. So when people read this, they know where to go. Otherwise, we send them on a scavenger hunt, going through all of our policies, trying to find out just how do I do that and where do I get it. I think we need to do a little bit of referencing. We used to do that at the top of every policy. It had a listing not just with the date but related policies, and that was eliminated. But I think we have to add it in, and this would be one place to add that in to guide them to where to go and how to do it. All I have to do is say reference policy so and so. As far as the other things, I know those footnotes seem a little confusing, but after a while you will get used to PS means Pennsylvania State Code. I have a list of those if you ever want them, so you know what all those abbreviations mean, so you know where the law, if it's in school code or in our policies, or exactly where it belongs. So you could find it if you want it. It took me a while to get all those abbreviations together. Okay. Moving on.
Are we going to add that reference to this last sentence on this policy.
Yeah, we will add it in.
Okay, thank you.
We have a number of policies, I think, where it talks about parents' rights and filing, and I think I've mentioned before, it should reference the correct policy. Sometimes it's the next policy in line, sometimes it's elsewhere.
Yeah, typically, PSBA does cross-reference those. It would be policy 105.2 is our policy.
Well, but we're looking at, if you're a parent reading this, is there a cross-reference available to you? Okay. Number 204 is being held. 205. 206 is being deleted. The new 206. 207 is being deleted and replaced.
But the new confidential,
The new what?
confidential communications,
Yeah, 207.
right. That sounded like some confidential communication did not need to be revealed to parents.
Is there a specific place in that policy
Yeah.
that you want to reference? I know without the numbers we used to have, it's hard to find the specific line.
Yeah, under the guidelines, information received in confidence from a student may be revealed to student's parent, guardian. I have a concern about it may be revealed to the parent.
Does that have to do with the student's age?
At times, yeah. I'm trying to navigate and get this up for you right now because my computer keeps freezing.
I understand. Yep. And even even the maybe for the building principal and other appropriate authority, why wouldn't it just plain be revealed?
Probably.
There's a
because
lot of
that's what-
confidential information that, right.
Yeah, if you look at the footnote, if it says school code, then it's worded the way the school code requires us to word it.
Yeah, if you click on that blue link, it takes you to the school code that says exactly what it is. And I know you're thinking may versus should, but depending on what the sensitive issue is, you might not want to go to the parent or guardian, you might want to go to an authority figure. So you don't want to say should be parent or guardian. If it's an abusive relationship, you need to go to another authority. So I can see why they put the word may, so you have options of who you need to contact. But if you click that blue like hyperlink at the bottom, it'll pull up a new window with that PA code that it's referencing.
I think you'll find there are a lot of places in our policies where we may not be thrilled with the wording or the decision, but that's the way the law reads.
Yeah. Like our brain does one thing, but legally we need to do a different thing.
Right. So under delegation or responsibility, for example, where you're looking at a staff member may reveal confidential information to the building principal and other appropriate authorities, that's where, where my mind goes in a situation like that is if something's shared with a guidance counselor, for example. Our counselors are highly trained on when to, they need to build that trust with students. So if, students aren't going to confide in them, if they know they're going to go and tell the principal, they might get in trouble for something. But our counselors are highly trained in knowing if it's something that involves their safety or the safety of other students, that in those situations, they may have to reveal it to a principal or to a parent or to somebody else.
You ready to move on? 208. 209 is being held. 209-1, 2, and 2 are being held, as is 210 and 210.1. They're all being held. 211,
Yes. I was a little confused on that one, and I don't know how to get back to where.
you're talking about
Okay.
211?
Yes. Okay. No. I'm sorry. Thank you. It looked to me like normal insurance, accident insurance, it says is the parent's responsibility, but the school will pays for extra or excess accident insurance. But regular accident insurance is the parent's responsibility. But I'm sure that our school has accident.
It does. Do you want?
We have student accident insurance that'll cover a student as secondary for any accident that occurs on a school-related activity.
Right. So what is the accident insurance that the parent is responsible?
Would be their health insurance. So they'd be covering their child on their family medical plan. And then if there's an accident here at CB, there's a process for the parents to report that accident, and then that insurance could possibly cover expenses that weren't covered by the parents' primary insurance.
Thank you.
Okay, we ready to move on? 212, 213 is being deleted, 214. I just have a quick question. Are we living in another century with this class rank? There are a lot of schools that are simply dropping class rank and so forth.
I would love to drop class rank.
I would love to do it too.
I don't know if that's the will of our district or the community at this time, but yes, to answer your question in short, there are a lot of districts rethinking class rank.
I would hope so. Quite frankly, GPA is getting to be a little iffy too, just what it means. But I'd like us to consider maybe that needs to be vetted with other groups, but I'd appreciate if we would do that and to come back and possibly get rid of this altogether.
I believe there's a whole conversation to be had around grading and assessment in general and what that looks like, and kind of cross that bridge before you cross the class rank bridge.
Yeah.
Quick
I'm ready to
question,
cross that bridge.
quick question on that. I know it's all semantics because you can't compare one school to the other school. Are colleges still looking at class rank when students are
It's
applying?
hard to answer that question because I don't know if there's here's what I will tell you. There's a contingency of elite high school, college prep private schools out there, the ones that only send students to Ivy League type schools, schools like Philip Exeter Academy and some of that have eliminated it, and it's not preventing their students from getting into elite colleges and universities. So there is a movement out there in public and private school to rethink class rank and what that means, and just some of it's philosophical. There's philosophical conversations around, is the job of assessing students to rank and sort them, or is it to show their mastery towards given learning outcomes? So that's, there's a lot of schools having that debate right now.
And a lot of colleges having a reality check because in some schools, being, say, 15th in your class rank is the equivalent of being third in another district. And they know that. They look at what they consider the reputation of the school, which means it doesn't mean anything. So hopefully we will evolve into getting rid of this.
I think it's fair to say that colleges and universities admissions offices are not probably weighting that as much as they did at one time. But I hate to say that without talking to somebody who's an expert in that area.
Yeah. Well, I agree it would probably be helpful to get some parent input too, because that's something that sometimes parents don't realize is or isn't important. We will come back to that hopefully soon. Okay, 215, 216,
On 215,
yes.
I was somewhat disappointed that the detailed academic achievement, attitude, effort, work habits, behavior, etc., were crossed off and changed to just measures of multiple measures. I like seeing the exact words.
Okay, you're at 215.
I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but to me, those are definitely things that the students should be exhibiting.
Could you lead me to just where you're reading that?
Under guidelines,
Under guidelines.
page 1, right toward the bottom.
I would guess that's because they don't want it to, any one part of that to be inappropriately weighed. I mean, if a child is doing well but missed class a lot, should he be penalized?
So,
Do you penalize his grades for his behavior or his work ethics, or does the grade only reflect how well he's mastered the subject?
right. I think another thing that there to note is there's a lot of efforts underway in the district right now to separate academic achievement from, you can call it habits of learning, or whatever, where we are reporting out to parents on work ethic and students' attitude.
Mm-hmm.
But, you have students who might, it's kind of, or we're not going to retain a student because they might show poor work habits, but they're excelling academically. That it's kind of, that might raise a whole host of other questions, but really when it comes to academic achievement, promotion and retention, we're not choosing to promote or retain a student based on how well they play school, but on their academic performance. So I think that's why the decision, we decided as a committee, I think, to remove that. If I'm correct, Dr. Kruger, I'm not sure if you have anything to add to that.
It was just the subjective nature of some of those other indicators that rose as concerns for us, and we wanted to keep it based on the academic performance, which is really the key indicator. The other ones were kind of ancillary pieces to it, but it comes down to, are they meeting the grade level standards?
I'm going to presume that some of this is under our character strong program.
Oh,
and
yes.
MTTS.
The issue here is, do we penalize a child academically for things that have nothing to do with what he's learned? I've always agreed that the grade reflects how well they've mastered the subject, and that's all it reflects.
Mm-hmm.
And kids learn differently. Okay? That moves us on to 216, 216.1, 216.2 is being held, 217, 218.
Is 217 where you would add
I was
in?
really pleased to see restorative justice being added. I think that's an important piece today.
Is 217 where you'd want to add in the diplomas? Because that's the one that talks about the diplomas.
Yeah, yes, I would
That one?
appreciate.
Yeah.
Thank you for picking that up for me. I'd like to make sure those students are included in the graduation list and that it's clear that they're allowed to. Now, if they participate in graduation, they have to participate in the whole thing. Oftentimes, they don't want to come to rehearsals. But, it's the whole process. Thank you. Where am I now? 218? Oh, yeah, that's where we have restorative justice. I think that's a wonderful addition. 218.1, point 2. 218.3.
Question?
Yeah, me too. Go ahead.
Okay, mine was at the bottom of page 2.
And 218.3?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think transfer students or return of student to school. And it's like that, I'm confused. If the victim is no longer enrolled, okay. Or if the conviction has been reversed and is not pending appeal, then the student may return to school. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I misread the word
I had a
victim.
problem with, it said we wouldn't put them in the same building. I don't know if we can always do that. Is it, it isn't always possible. I mean, at the elementary level, it might be possible, but in the middle school and the high school, we can't guarantee they won't be in the same building.
I think in those situations, that's one, like what we're talking about, an adjudicated youth who was convicted of a crime against another student. If they were to return, that's where we would look at alternative options.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The other one talks about if the crime happened in the school setting, and I don't think that should matter. I think if it's one of our students that experienced sexual attack, they should be protected in the school, whether or not that happened at school or somewhere else.
I think that comes directly from Title IX law, though.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
We
That's the
can't,
way- that's
like,
the way
we're
the
not
law
allowed to even
reads.
investigate something unless it happened on school grounds or at a school-sponsored function. It's not,
Yeah, but 218.3 and 219 get to be a little dicey, and I'm sure that's because of the law, so I will pass on that. 220, my problem there is an attachment that's blank. Nothing is checked off on the attachment, at least not the last time I looked at it. Would someone like to check that for me? At the very bottom, there's
Yeah, it comes up.
an attachment. Is it filled out or is it blank? Mine's blank.
I see what you're saying, it's blank as in which one.
Yeah, you're supposed to choose all of these things and the entire thing is blank. Doesn't that need to be filled out in some way?
This is the form that they're submitting, correct?
Yeah,
Correct.
and,
So depending on
Right.
what they want, they fill it out to submit it.
yeah.
oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's an
I'm-
attachment to the, it's
I
not
get it.
policy, it's,
I get it, okay. 221. There's a phrase in there I'm not sure I understand. It talks about educational instability. What does that mean? Oh, who knows?
what's that?
Actually, I think it shows up a couple places.
Yeah. Did you hear her?
Can you say that a little louder? Yeah, so it could be any factor impacting the education process. So a lot of times that typically would be a student experiencing homelessness or maybe in a transition to a new guardian.
So that's sort of at our discretion. Okay.
Yeah, something that disrupts that typical education process that would create a barrier to what.
So we define that as we find it appropriate. Okay, I'm all right with that. 222, 223, 224, 226,
Question on
220.
23.
Am I going too fast? 227.
223.
223.
Oh, 223. Oh, I skipped one. Oh, okay. Go ahead. 223.
Read my own, yeah. Okay, I'm presuming that since skateboards, motorcycles on school property was taken out, that it, and mini bikes, that it's in another policy?
I didn't like it in there, because
Yeah.
I think if a kid right here comes to
takes a skateboard to get to school, I'm perfectly fine with that. So like that's my thinking of it. I'm like, are we gonna be these old people get off my lawn types? I'd
Yeah,
rather get the kid to school in that whatever manner he wants to get to school in, or, you know, whatever.
I think they were thinking of recreational use around that
recreational,
property.
like in the
not-
parking
not-
Like, we don't want
lots.
students using them in our playgrounds and, yeah, how they come to or from school, but
Right.
They're going as far
But
as the
this
parking
is-
lot's okay.
Yeah, like the teacher brings his motorcycle to school. Like, you can't say, oh, you can't
Right.
use that road vehicles to come to work.
right,
Absolutely.
which I think is why we removed it.
It's just too much.
You have anyone in mind with that?
No, I'm just saying,
No,
come to work. Yeah, I agree.
I agree. I
But we
agree.
don't, we
Are all
don't need
right?
anything for insurance purposes.
Well, we don't for their cars.
No, about skateboards in the parking lots.
Are there signs in the parking lots about that?
I believe there might be on some of our buildings and some
Yeah, there's
signage.
a sign right out here on the, yeah. So as long as the signs are there, we don't need a policy.
No.
Okay.
I don't want to have a bunch of skateboarders out here outside of the meeting. Okay. 224, 226, 227, 228,
27.
227.
What is the difference between a required incident and a discretionary incident? Getting there. I only had my notes. Sorry. About reporting. Under guidelines, page 2, the superintendent or designee shall immediately report required incidents
Isn't there a law covering that one?
and may report discretionary incidents. Just,
I don't see where you see this, may report this.
Is there a footnote referencing a law?
And there's 2 PA codes attached to that.
I don't know if I know exactly what the difference between a discretionary and required is. I know we typically we report out anything involving substances.
That's
We
what I
automatically
thought,
do a police
yeah.
report.
yeah, it's right. I'm just wondering if that discretionary is
Maybe that's to
needed.
cover substances we haven't thought of.
Cover what?
Substances we haven't thought of. Usually we know which substances we're concerned with.
Ones that haven't been invented yet. Kids are crafty.
And some of them are natural that kids take. So I think there's no law against them, and we have to decide for ourselves if it's okay. We okay to move on?
I'm just assuming that it says about undergoing tests for reasonable suspicion. The principals do not actually administer any of that,
We
correct?
typically use our SROs.
Resource officer.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Because it didn't say it in here, it just said the principal makes the determination.
Yeah, and of course, his determination is different than the legal determination. Reasonable suspicion is.
Just want to make sure that the principals weren't the ones
No.
actually carrying it out. I just want, just
No.
didn't say, I want to make sure.
Okay.
I mean, it depends on what you mean by carrying out what precisely, the testing or yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, no, we would not do the testing, but they're doing the investigation that may lead to the reasonable suspicion for,
Right, yeah.
yeah, that would require it, yeah.
We ready to move on? 228, just a question, it talks about student government's bylaws. We have a number of clubs that have bylaws, and I think any club with bylaws should be filed with the district. I think the esports team has bylaws, and there's a couple of others that actually, Dr. Fox, some of these clubs have actual formal bylaws. So I think,
We have them in the SBAA, so like any student body, all the clubs, a lot of them that deal with like that collect money or raise money have to submit bylaws to us to be an actual club.
But
yes,
But by law, if they have a student account, right, Adele?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, student activities account, there has to be
this one,
bylaws.
this one only talks about student government bylaws. I think it should say in all clubs. That's all I'm asking. Okay, 229, 230, 231's deleted, 230, there's a new 231, 232, 233, 234, 235, 235.1, 236 is replaced, 236.1. There were options under 236.1, and in my notes, what I have said here is, why don't we pick all options?
That came from recommendations from our pupil services team with what processes we have in place here. So for threat assessments, for different supports we have. So I know that Sarah took her team and they really looked at that policy, so.
Okay, if that's what works, I'm okay with it. 237 is deleted and replaced with electronic devices. There's something in there about designated people. I need to get the exact wording for you. Where am I here? Electronic devices, 237. There's a phrase there that talks about a designated term. I'm not sure who that refers to.
Can you repeat
I
that?
may have lost my own train of thought in that. I'm sorry. Under authorized options. Under guidelines, did we mean to check off that it's not returned until there's been a conference?
Excuse me, what'd you say?
Under guidelines, did we mean to check off that the confiscated items shall not be returned until there's a conference with the parents? Was that supposed to have been
Yes.
checked? Okay, because mine doesn't have a check, but it's in green, so I
Yeah,
thought,
because we highlighted it.
okay.
Yeah.
239, foreign exchange students. 239.1 is deleted, as is 240 and 241. 246 is being held. 247. Here's my problem with 247, because I have a problem in general with hazing. We define hazing as causing physical harm or severe emotional harm. To me, any form of hazing is insulting and inappropriate. I think the definition of hazing, they have aggravated hazing, granted, I'm sure that's excessive, but there's also such a thing as organizational hazing. The advantages of sports, one of the advantages of sports is supposedly to teach students to be part of a team and be accepted. And then we turn around and we say, it's okay to take the first-year kids and make them carry your gear. That's not accepting. That is, to me, a very mild form of hazing, of saying, you're not one of us yet. Now, I know we had this discussion before and was told, well, that's harmless. I don't think it's harmless because I think it teaches them that you can treat some of your teammates differently than others. That's not a lesson I like. I think there should be no form of hazing or unequal treatment if they made the team, they're on the team, and they're a member of the team. And I feel very strongly about that. I think otherwise it's the wrong message we're sending to our kids. And under guidelines, I think we crossed out just the one. Let me find guidelines. We only talk about publication of handbooks. We don't talk about a written policy, a presentation, especially verbal instructions by the coach. I think that's a very important part of what happens to the team. And if necessary, the posting of notices and signs. We have seen hazing go out of control, and it goes fast. And once you tell a student that you're allowed to treat someone on their team differently, you're setting them up. You're just asking for it to get out of control. I think hazing should be defined more generously.
Is there any overlap between that and just the regular code of conduct? I'm just curious. Because some of what you're saying does overlap into like a code of conduct thing as well.
This is all part of the code of conduct.
Right,
Yeah.
so,
That's how that's how it gets communicated to students.
right,
And in hazing, it gets you kicked off the team.
right.
It is a very specific group that participates.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my opinion. Some of you may find that's, well, you know, a sort of boys will be boys attitude, and I find it unacceptable. I would like to see that changed. How do the rest of you feel?
So you're talking about just changing, adding some additional explanation and wording to expand hazing from just the physical and bodily harm, but also to any unequal treatment in any club,
Yes,
activity, team,
absolutely.
thing like that, specifically in that environment. That's what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
I thought I saw in the thing about reference to policy 103, my thing's having a brain fart here, so it's not working right. Other harassment, I don't know, is there that type of hazing listed in sports policies and stuff like that? The mental hazing.
I'm not sure I know what your question is.
If it's in other policies such as sports policies, that there will not be that mental hazing type of.
I think
that you're
this is specific for athletics.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying, like, if it's not here, is it somewhere else?
Well, we do have bullying. Elsewhere, I think it's called bullying when you treat someone like that for no good reason. Here, it's...
Because, I mean, it references 103, but I can't pull it up, so.
I think what we're doing here is supposedly reinforcing those behavioral policies in this setting because it's a unique setting that often allows it. And where elsewhere it's called bullying, here it's considered just what the team does. And I would like to see all forms of unequal treatment to be unacceptable.
Right, but what I'm saying is it might not be physical hazing with this policy, but it might be covered under bullying on another policy. So both of them, it's not okay to do, that's what I'm
Under
saying.
student conduct, yeah,
Well, in
Yeah.
the code of conduct, we don't allow bullying.
right.
Right, but you're saying about carrying backpacks, you're a rookie or a freshman, but that would be,
What
fall
I'm
under
saying
another
is-
policy, but it's still not allowed.
What I'm saying is that behavior should be reflected in this policy.
Okay, so you're saying it should be listed both places?
Yes.
Okay.
And in this case, hazing itself is a behavior that can be very physical and should be addressed, but I don't think it should be addressed at the expense of the less obvious.
Right.
That's my opinion. It would take the rest of the board to agree to make that change.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you. My only concern is when you're holding coaches and stuff liable also, and it being a fine line such as in, I don't know, the soccer, like, maybe at the end of practice, the freshmen are responsible for cleaning up the gear, or this or that kind of thing, where is that then like hazing? It's not.
It's not hazing, but I consider it inappropriate behavior, and I consider it a precursor to allowing hazing. That's my point. And I don't think that should happen. Because you're telling that team that the freshmen are not quite as good as the rest of us. They have to earn their way on the team. They're already on the team.
Right.
Well, I do. You know, that's why I'm asking for everyone else's opinion.
I think it's coming down to definitions of what hazing is and what bullying is and what falls under each criteria. And I think we need that a little bit better defined so that we know where it falls and what policy it should be under. Because what you're saying is probably most likely not allowed, but what policies?
Yeah, what I'm saying is we should not allow any behavior that belittles any student in any way.
Right, but we're also cleaning up the policy, so the same thing isn't written in 10 different policies. This policy covers this with this policy covers that with that, so like it directs you, so it's not written the same words over and over and over and over again.
So are
Trying
you
to clean
saying
it up.
that behavior shouldn't be included in this policy, but should be in the general
Well, I'm not,
general sports behavior?
I think
Because they
it-
do have guidelines.
I think we need to look at where that would fall under. Would it fall under bullying, that specific type of hazing? Is it classified as bullying, or is it more hazing? But, because here it was more physical hazing versus mental hazing.
Yeah.
And that might fall under bullying, which is, you know,
I bring it
that's,
up most because I realize what I'm referring to isn't what we traditionally think of as hazing.
right.
Okay, but that doesn't mean there isn't a need to adjust that behavior.
Okay.
Now, maybe that falls under the athletic code of behavior and could be addressed there, but for me, it should be addressed somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It might be in a different
Because
policy elsewhere.
hazing does carry its own suggestion. I get that.
Right.
Well, then I'll have to work on having it
Find
put
it.
someplace else.
We just have to find it. My thing's not working too well.
Well, I think even a simple, just adding a definition in there of expanding the hazing thing to say any form of bullying or unequal treatment of students
It's unacceptable.
based on any discrimination whatsoever. I mean, they already have so much anti-discrimination
Yeah,
stuff in
a
there.
simple line like that would
But
make
if you
me
want a simple
happy.
line like that, I would say just pull it for that. Let's add that into the hazing thing, and then that should cover it moving forward.
I don't need
But
a
note the
long
policies.
explanation. A simple line like that.
Just something that
would
covers
suit
the
me.
basics of it. Yep.
Meanwhile, I also think that under guidelines, the verbal instructions by the coach should be involved. I should think it's important for coaches to make it clear, you know, what their guidelines are. I'd like to see more of those checked off.
So administratively, from our end, and that I completely agree with, and that we can work with Dina on the how we communicate it. But as far as, you know, this policy is the definition of hazing comes very clear from PA code, state law, but, so I guess I'm looking for some direction on, are you asking us to expand on that
I think what
definition?
Mark suggested is a good idea.
Just from what Idette's expressing, it's making sure that it doesn't just encompass physical bodily harm, but also the other forms of hazing that are included, which really is just unequal treatment, or mental anguish caused by hazing, because there's lots of different forms. So it's just making sure that it's a more general definition of hazing and less specific on just the bodily part. I think it's a simple add-on for that.
Yeah, the hazing suggests
Maybe it's
severe
already in there, but-
emotional harm.
Yeah, it does list mental.
Yeah, but it
Right,
talks,
that's where I'm trying-
it
Okay.
talks about it being severe, and I would like a statement somewhere in the athletics, either
Yeah.
here or in the code, or in the
So
code of
Idette-
conduct.
Yeah, and actually I did in the policy, if you look at definitions, number 4, If you can see number 4 under definitions, Phil just showed me, it says endure brutality of a mental nature, including activity adversely affecting the mental health or dignity of the individual, and then moves into sleep deprivation, expulsion from, so it kind of like talks about the mental nature of some of that
But it
stuff.
talks about the more severe forms of,
Same thing,
mental-
exclusion from social contract or conduct that would result in extreme embarrassment. That's in there too. A lot of
Yeah.
times embarrassment, it's what's associated with the hazing piece, so that is kind of covered there.
I think it suggests something more extreme, but as long as it's understood what I'm getting at, and it's somewhere in the code of conduct, and it stops, I'd be happy. Okay, we will move on. 248, deleted. Oh. Just paper. 249 is retired. New 249, 250. I had a question under 250. It talks about student recruitment, and my question was, how are parents notified? I'm not quite sure how this. how this
Notified
works.
of what precisely? I mean, that we have recruiters coming into the schools, or if they
Yes, I
specifically
think so.
reach out to?
Where am I? 250. Yes.
I'm not sure if I can answer that, but Dr. Fox, I don't know if, I don't want to put you on the spot, or do you have any information on that?
It says, superintendent or designee shall notify parents or guardians prior to the junior, senior year about the provisions of this policy. How do you do that? You don't do that. Well, you're supposed to, it's in the policy. That's what I asked, because I don't remember that ever happening.
Is that in the handbook?
But I think we need to be aware of the fact that we're supposed to be notifying parents when there are recruiters coming into the building. Duly noted? Okay.
All right, we're
Good
having a
enough.
sidebar over here. We believe there is a letter that goes home
It's
from the
there.
high school. Yeah,
There's a letter?
it's from the high school guidance office that
Oh,
goes
from the
home.
guidance office, okay. I just didn't know how they were,
I remember saying it from our main office, but it could
No,
come
I
from
think,
guidance.
okay. I just wondered how they were notified.
from guidance office, and if the parents don't want their kid's name on that list that goes to recruiters, they have to opt out.
Okay, good enough.
How it used to be.
251 is deleted, there's a new 252. But it's preferred to 117, if I remember. The other 252 is deleted with a new 252. 253, 254 is deleted. That's it, folks. So what we need now is a motion to cover this whole discussion. What I'm looking for is a motion to approve the presented 200 series with whatever changes were suggested. And we'll see if what comes back has all the changes we thought we were getting, because we can't do each one separately.
Motion to approve the 200s as presented with changes discussed.
Before we vote, let's take a look at policy 815.1, the new AI policy. Are there any concerns about that one?
I thought it was well done.
I agree. Then I would ask if Mrs. Kapka would amend her motion to include 815.1.
I amend my motion to include policy 815 as presented.
Can I have a second for the motion and the amendment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay or abstain. Thank you. Folks, what's in the future with these is much less painful than what we've been going through for these last year or so. Then we will move on to action discussion. Information, I'm sorry. To the information agenda. Any concerns about the finance and operations report? or curriculum and instruction? Are there any federal funds?
For now.
Oh, yeah. Are there any federal funds left?
We do, yes. We are in
Yeah,
good shape
that's
with federal
getting
funds.
a little dicey, isn't it? Okay, IU reports, it is attached. I do have some additional notes to the IU report. Number one being that our director of early childhood and special education services is retiring after 36 years. We are looking for a replacement. Actually, that job has expanded exponentially over the last several years, so we're probably going to replace Mrs. Zubek with two people. So I expect to have a very vibrant set of applications. The IU is actually working on what they call emerging financial planning, with the unsurety of what's happening with federal funding and even sometimes state. They feel as if doing long-term budgets might be a problem, so they're going to be coming up with some what they call emerging financial plans. They also wanted to announce that there was a breach from some wide area networks, but not ours. Our firewall held up well, and lastly, we are not losing, I don't think, any classes going back to their home districts this year, but we have a request for as many as 6 or 7 new classes. We do not have teachers or aides for those classes. So we had that problem at the beginning of this year. We had 3 classes we couldn't staff, and we're doing them virtually. We eventually found staff for them and moved some of our students from Lancaster to Lebanon. So all the students were getting the full range of in-person services, but next year is going to be harder, and we don't promise to be able to handle all the students at the level of services that you might wish to give them. Just wanted to give you a heads up that that's coming down the pike. There is no Lancaster Academy report this month. PSBA report is posted. I will highlight that the Office of Open Records is offering 2 free virtual meetings on the Sunshine Act and Open Records Act. PSBA has a new State of Education report. I've asked to have it sent. They're a little slow doing that. If anyone would really like to see the report, I did download it if you can't, and I could send that to you. I would note that the delegate assembly at this year's conference will be in person only. The idea is that they'll have more people there, but for those of us that were used to being able to run down to Hershey to do it, we'd have to run up to Kalahari to participate. And lastly, the federal issue that I don't know, you get these rulings and then they're taken back, and I'm never sure which ones are active, but the only one I've seen so far that I thought might affect us was Department of Ag canceling funds for us to be able to purchase produce locally. Why, I don't know, but that's the way it is. Any questions? CTC, anything new?
Not today, nope.
Haven't done a hire yet?
Say what?
Haven't done a hire yet?
No, I can
Getting
discuss that a little bit in executive.
Okay, getting
session
closer.
if you want.
Okay, thank you. Construction team, any information from you folks? And
Everything's going smoothly with the Leola renovations, and as I mentioned before, we're in the design development phase for Fritz Elementary.
thank you. Any other reports? If not, is there anyone wishing to address the board on any issue at all? Vice President's report, anything special? Any board announcements or initiatives? And the dates of our next meeting are there. If not, I will take a motion to adjourn to executive session for legal and personnel reasons. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you for your patience this evening.